presented by Soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at Soundlibra.com. Empathy Advantage, the foundation of connection.
Welcome to the Empathy Advantage. We're so excited to explore the incredible power of empathy with you. Before we jump in, a quick note that while we're discussing mental well-being, this isn't medical advice, so please consult a professional for your specific health needs.
Absolutely, Lisa. This first episode is all about the foundation. We're going to define what empathy really is and why it's not just a soft skill, but a crucial advantage in every aspect of our lives.
So, Alex, what is empathy at its core?
At its core, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's about stepping into someone else's shoes, seeing the world from their perspective, and feeling even a fraction of what they might be feeling.
I've heard people distinguish it from sympathy. Can you explain that difference?
That's a perfect distinction, Lisa. Sympathy is feeling for someone, a sense of pity or concern. Empathy is feeling with someone. It's about resonance. Imagine you see a friend fall, and you feel a twinge of your own past fall. You remember that scrape or that embarrassment, that shared memory, that echo of their experience within you. That's the spark of empathy.
So, it's like a shared emotional experience, even if you haven't gone through the exact same thing?
Precisely. Our brains are wired for this. When we see someone experience something, especially if we can relate it to our own lives, certain parts of our brain light up, mirroring that feeling. It's this innate ability that allows us to form bonds and understand each other on a profound level.
And why is this so important? Especially today, when we're often told to be tough and independent.
That's the paradox, isn't it? In a world that sometimes values stoicism, empathy is actually a sign of immense strength. It's the bedrock of all healthy relationships. Think about your closest friendships, your family bonds, even your professional collaborations. What makes them strong? Often, it's the understanding, the feeling that someone truly gets you. Without empathy, those connections are superficial, easily broken.
So, it's the glue that holds us together. But I imagine there are different ways to be empathetic or different applications.
You're absolutely right. Empathy isn't just about being nice. It's about being effective. When you understand what motivates someone, what their fears are, what their hopes are, you can communicate better, resolve conflicts more smoothly, and build trust far more readily.
It sounds like a superpower, really.
It can certainly feel that way. And the amazing thing is, it's a superpower that can be developed and strengthened. It's not something you're just born with or without. You can cultivate your empathy. Think of it like a muscle. The more you consciously exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
So, some practical ways to start exercising it might be to consciously try to see things from another person's point of view in everyday interactions. Even in small things, like a disagreement with a colleague or a misunderstanding with a friend.
Exactly. When you find yourself reacting, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what might be going on for them? What are they feeling right now? It's about moving from judgment to curiosity. Curiosity is a powerful driver of empathy. When you're curious about someone, you're opening the door to understanding them.
I like that. Shifting from why are they doing that to what might be leading them to do that.
Precisely. And this foundational understanding of empathy impacts our personal lives dramatically. It helps us navigate romantic relationships with more grace, parent with more understanding, and be better friends. We can offer support that is truly helpful because we understand the underlying need.
And professionally, you mentioned effectiveness. How does that play out?
In the workplace, empathy is invaluable. Empathetic leaders inspire loyalty and high performance. Empathetic teammates collaborate more effectively. Even in customer service, understanding a client's frustration or needs can turn a difficult situation into a positive experience. It builds rapport. People want to work with and buy from people who they feel understand them.
So, It's not just about how we feel about others, but how it translates into tangible results and success.
Absolutely. It's the ultimate advantage. It's the foundation for trust, connection, and effective communication. Without it, we're essentially operating in silos, misunderstanding each other, and missing out on opportunities for genuine connection and collaboration. We're building on a shaky foundation.
It makes me think about times I felt truly understood by someone. That feeling is incredibly powerful, and it makes you want to reciprocate that kindness and understanding.
And that's the beautiful ripple effect of empathy. It's contagious. When you lead with empathy, you inspire it in others. It creates a more positive, supportive environment for everyone involved. It elevates not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us.
So, to recap for our listeners, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's different from sympathy, which is feeling for someone, while empathy is feeling with them. It's a fundamental human capacity, crucial for building strong relationships, fostering trust, and enhancing effectiveness in both personal and professional spheres. And it's a skill we can actively develop.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. This basic understanding of empathy is our starting point. Over the course of this series, we will delve deeper into the different facets of empathy and explore practical techniques for developing it.
It's a journey, and we're excited to take it with everyone.
Indeed. And remember, the empathy advantage isn't just a nice to have. It's a must have for truly connecting and succeeding in today's world.
Well said, Alex. We've set the stage, defined our core concept, and hopefully sparked a deeper curiosity in our listeners.
We have. Next episode, the spectrum of empathy, cognitive, emotional, and compassionate.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we established just how crucial empathy is for building strong connections and succeeding in all areas of life. Today, we're going to dive deeper into the very building blocks of empathy.
That's right, Alex. Last week was all about why empathy matters. Today, we're getting into the how. And to do that, we need to understand that empathy isn't just one big thing. It's actually made up of different, but interconnected, parts.
Exactly. Think of it like a three-legged stool. If one leg is wobbly, the whole thing loses its stability. To be truly empathetic, we need to cultivate all three types. These are cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and compassionate empathy.
Cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, compassionate empathy. Let's break down that first one. What exactly is cognitive empathy?
Cognitive empathy is all about understanding. It's the ability to see the world from another person's perspective. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and comprehending their thoughts, beliefs, and intentions, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. It's the intellectual side of empathy.
So, it's like being able to understand why someone might be feeling a certain way based on their situation or their thinking, without necessarily feeling it yourself?
Precisely. Imagine a colleague is frustrated because a project deadline was moved up unexpectedly. With cognitive empathy, you can understand their frustration. You can grasp that the sudden change creates pressure and extra work for them. You might think, okay, they're feeling stressed because they have less time to complete this now. You're analyzing their situation and their likely response.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the perspective taking part. It allows us to navigate conversations and situations more effectively because we're not just reacting to what someone says, but understanding the underlying reasoning.
Exactly. It's a vital tool for effective communication, negotiation, and even just for avoiding misunderstandings. You might use cognitive empathy when you're trying to explain something complex to someone and you adjust your language based on what you think they will understand. You're thinking about their mental model.
And that leads us to the second type, emotional empathy. This one sounds a bit more visceral.
It is. Emotional empathy is the ability to feel what another person is feeling. It's about sharing in their emotional experience. When someone is sad, you feel a pang of sadness too. When they're joyful, you feel a swell of joy. It's that immediate, often subconscious, emotional resonance.
Ah, so this is the feeling with part of empathy. It's when you see a friend crying and you start to feel a tear well up in your own eye, even if you don't fully know why they're sad yet.
That's a perfect example. It's that contagious quality of emotions. Think about it in a group setting. If one person is incredibly anxious, it can sometimes ripple through the room. That's emotional empathy at play. It's the part of empathy that connects us on a gut level. It makes us feel less alone.
And this is what makes us feel genuine connection, isn't it? It's not just understanding someone's problem intellectually, but actually sharing in their emotional burden or their happiness.
Absolutely. Emotional empathy is often what strengthens bonds between people. It's the feeling of, I get it, I feel it too, which can be incredibly validating and comforting for the person experiencing the emotion.
So we have cognitive empathy, understanding their perspective, and emotional empathy, feeling their feelings. Where does compassionate empathy fit in?
Compassionate empathy is where understanding and feeling actually translate into action. It's when you not only understand someone's situation and feel their emotions, but you're also moved to help or support them. It's empathy combined with a desire to alleviate suffering or enhance well-being. We talked about empathy being about connection. Compassionate empathy is about actionable connection.
So, if cognitive empathy is understanding the rain and emotional empathy is feeling the wetness, compassionate empathy is grabbing an umbrella for them?
That's a fantastic analogy, Lisa. You've nailed it. It's about taking that understanding and that emotional resonance and saying, what can I do to make this better? It's the practical application of empathy. It's the doing part.
This is so helpful. It's easy to think of empathy as just one thing, but breaking it down into these three types really clarifies how it works and how we can actively develop it.
Indeed. And these three types don't work in isolation. They feed into each other. To be truly effective, they ideally work in concert. For instance, if you're trying to help a friend who has lost their job, you'd first use cognitive empathy to understand their fears about finances and their sense of lost identity.
Then you'd likely tap into emotional empathy, feeling some of their anxiety and sadness to connect with them on a deeper level.
And finally, compassionate empathy would drive you to offer concrete support, like helping them update their resume, practice interview skills, or simply offering a listening ear without judgment. Without the cognitive and emotional parts, the compassionate action might be misguided or miss the mark.
It's like the cognitive part gives you the map, the emotional part helps you feel the journey, and the compassionate part helps you offer a ride.
Beautifully put. So, remembering these three components, cognitive, emotional, and compassionate empathy, gives us a framework. It helps us identify where we might be strong and where we could grow. Perhaps you're great at understanding situations, cognitive, but struggle to connect emotionally, or maybe you feel deeply emotional, but find it hard to translate that into helpful action, compassionate.
Recognizing these differences is the first step to becoming a more well-rounded and effective communicator and friend. It allows us to be more intentional in our interactions.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned last time, empathy is a skill. It's something that can be learned and improved with practice. Understanding this spectrum is a powerful first step in that journey.
So, to recap, we have cognitive empathy, which is understanding another's perspective without necessarily feeling their emotions. Then there's emotional empathy, where we share in the feelings of others. And finally, compassionate empathy, which is feeling moved to act based on that understanding and shared emotion.
Precisely. Cultivating all three allows us to build deeper, more meaningful connections and navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater skill and kindness.
It really is like a complete package for understanding and supporting others.
It truly is. And that brings us to the end of this episode. We've broken down the core components of empathy, giving you a clearer picture of what it involves.
Now we know the different facets of empathy. We can start to work on them individually.
Next episode, the transformative power of empathy.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Empathy Advantage. Last time, we explored the 3 key types of empathy. Now, let's dive into the cornerstone of demonstrating empathy, active listening.
That's right, Alex. We talked about what empathy is. Now we're focusing on how to do it, and active listening is absolutely central. If you can't truly hear someone, you can't truly understand or connect with them.
Precisely. Active listening involves making a conscious effort to understand the complete message being sent, both verbally and non-verbally. It requires practice, but the rewards are immense. It builds trust, deepens understanding, and makes people feel valued.
So, Alex, what are the key components of active listening? Where do we start?
Let's break it down. The first is paying attention. This means truly focusing your attention on the speaker. Minimize distractions, make eye contact if appropriate, and orient your body language towards them. Imagine you're a detective, gathering clues from every word and gesture.
Minimizing distractions is huge. It's so easy to let our minds wander. So, the first step is really about being present.
Exactly. Being present. Effective listening is a single task focus. Then, the second critical technique is to show you're listening. This is where nonverbal cues come in. Nodding your head, leaning in slightly, and offering brief verbal affirmations like uh-huh or I see signal engagement without interrupting the speaker's flow.
That makes sense. It's like giving gentle nudges, letting them know, I'm with you, keep going. It encourages them to continue sharing.
You've got it. These small signals are powerful. Now, let's move to a more active technique, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means restating what you've heard in your own words. This confirms your understanding. You're essentially saying, if I understand correctly, you're saying X, Y, and Z. Is that right?
And that's so crucial, isn't it? So often we think we understand, but we've actually misinterpreted something. Paraphrasing catches those misinterpretations before they fester.
Absolutely. It's a sanity check for communication. And the second purpose of paraphrasing is that it shows the speaker you've been paying attention and have genuinely processed their message. This is a huge empathy builder. It indicates you care enough to make sure you've got it right.
So, instead of just saying, okay, you'd say something like, so, it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed because of the tight deadline and the unexpected changes to the project scope. Is that an accurate summary?
Perfect example, Lisa. You've nailed it. Now, building on paraphrasing, we have asking clarifying questions. These are open-ended questions that encourage the speaker to elaborate. They often start with what, how, or tell me more about.
So, not did you finish the report, but more like, what were your main challenges in completing that report?
Precisely. Asking, what challenges did you face, invites a more detailed response, giving you a richer understanding of their experience. It pushes beyond the surface level. Think of it like peeling back an onion, layer by layer, to get to the core of what's being communicated.
I like that analogy. It's about genuinely wanting to know more, rather than just getting a quick answer. And this leads us to another critical aspect, withholding judgment.
Ah, yes. This is perhaps the most challenging part of active listening, but also one of the most essential for empathy. When someone is speaking, especially if they're sharing something difficult, our natural instinct might be to jump to conclusions, offer solutions prematurely, or even criticize. Active listening requires us to suspend that judgment.
It's about creating a safe space for them to express themselves without fear of immediate criticism or unsolicited advice.
Exactly. We need to allow them to feel heard and understood, even if their perspective is different from our own. This doesn't mean we agree with everything, but it means we're willing to listen without jumping to negative conclusions. We're creating emotional safety.
So, to recap the core techniques of active listening so far, we're paying attention, showing we're listening with nonverbal cues, paraphrasing to confirm understanding, asking clarifying questions to dig deeper, and withholding judgment to create a safe space.
You've summarized it beautifully, Lisa. And it's important to remember that these techniques work together. The nonverbal cues support the verbal ones. The paraphrasing builds on the attention paid. And withholding judgment allows all of this to happen authentically.
It really is a holistic approach, isn't it? It's not just a checklist of things to do, but a genuine orientation towards understanding.
And that's where the empathy advantage truly shines. When you actively listen, you're not just gathering information. You're conveying respect, validating their feelings, and demonstrating that their perspective matters. This builds strong connections and fosters a sense of trust that is invaluable in all our relationships, personal and professional.
Think about a time someone truly listened to you. How did that feel? It probably made you feel understood, perhaps even cared for. That's the power we're talking about.
It's incredibly empowering for the speaker. And for the listener, it's a pathway to genuinely understanding another person's world, their motivations, and their challenges. It's the foundation for compassionate action.
So, to our listeners, practice this. Try to incorporate one or two of these techniques today. Maybe focus on nodding and using more confirmations, or try paraphrasing a conversation you have. Even small steps make a big difference.
Indeed, mastering active listening is a journey, not a destination. But by consistently applying these principles, you'll find yourself building deeper connections and fostering greater understanding in every interaction. Remember, truly hearing someone is one of the most profound ways you can show empathy.
And it's often the overlooked skill that unlocks so much potential in our lives.
Absolutely. We've learned how to truly listen. Next time, we'll explore the transformative power of empathy, how it shapes our personal growth and success in our careers and lives.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back. Last time we covered active listening. Now let's explore empathy's transformative power.
Right, Alex? We've learned to listen. Now, how does that translate into real, tangible change? How does empathy actually change things for the better?
Excellent question, Lisa. Let's start with personal growth. At its core, empathy allows us to connect with ourselves and others on a deeper level. When we understand another person's feelings, their perspective, their struggles, we inevitably gain a richer understanding of our own humanity. It's like looking at a puzzle piece and realizing it fits not just with another piece, but with the whole picture.
So, it's not just about understanding other people, but also about understanding ourselves better through that connection?
Precisely. Think about it. When you show empathy towards a friend going through a tough time, you're not just offering comfort. You're also engaging with universal human experiences, pain, loss, fear. This shared experience can actually reduce feelings of isolation and affirm your own emotional resilience. It builds a sense of shared experience, a feeling that we're all in this together.
That makes so much sense. It's like an emotional mirror. When we reflect empathy outwards, we also see ourselves more clearly.
Exactly. And this leads to stronger, more authentic relationships. When people feel truly seen and understood, trust blossoms. This is vital in every kind of relationship, whether it's with a partner, family, or close friends. Imagine a situation where a misunderstanding arises. Instead of defensiveness, empathy allows us to pause and consider the other person's point of view.
So, instead of immediately jumping to "you're wrong," we might think, why might they be feeling this way?
Bingo! This shift from judgment to understanding opens the door for constructive dialogue and problem solving. It diffuses tension and fosters a sense of safety, where individuals feel comfortable being vulnerable. This vulnerability, in turn, deepens intimacy and connection. It's a virtuous cycle. Empathy leads to better relationships, and better relationships reinforce our capacity for empathy.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not just about avoiding conflict, but about building something stronger through understanding. So, how does this translate into the professional world? We've talked a lot about personal benefits, but what about our careers?
The professional realm is where empathy's transformative power truly shines. In leadership, for example, empathetic leaders are dramatically more effective. They can inspire loyalty, boost morale, and create a positive work environment. When a leader understands their team's challenges, acknowledges their efforts, and considers their well-being, it fosters a sense of psychological safety.
Psychological safety. That's a key concept, isn't it? It means people feel safe to take risks, to speak up, to be themselves without fear of negative consequences.
Absolutely. And empathy is the fuel for that safety. Empathetic leaders don't just sign paychecks. They understand that their team members are human beings with lives outside of work. They recognize that stress, personal issues, or even just a bad day can impact performance. By showing understanding and offering support, even if it's just a listening ear, they build a team that is more engaged, more productive, and more loyal.
I can see how that would make a huge difference. Instead of just being a cog in a machine, employees feel valued as individuals.
Precisely. And this extends beyond leadership. In any collaborative team environment, empathy promotes better communication and teamwork. When colleagues try to understand each other's perspectives and challenges, they can work together more efficiently. Imagine a project where deadlines are tight. An empathetic team member might notice a colleague struggling and offer assistance, rather than simply focusing on their own tasks.
That's the ripple effect we talked about. One person's empathy can lift the entire team.
Exactly. And it's not just about internal team dynamics. In customer-facing roles, empathy is gold. Understanding a customer's frustrations, their needs, and their expectations can turn a negative experience into a positive one. Empathetic service isn't just about solving a problem. It's about making the customer feel heard and valued. This builds customer loyalty, which is invaluable for any business.
So, in essence, empathy helps us navigate complex human interactions more effectively, both in our personal lives and in our careers. It's about building bridges, not walls.
That's a fantastic summary. Lisa, let's recap the transformative power of empathy we've discussed today. Personally, empathy fosters deeper self-awareness and authenticity. It allows us to connect with our own emotions and experiences by understanding them in others, and this leads to more robust, trusting, and intimate relationships. We build stronger bonds through shared understanding and vulnerability.
And professionally, empathy is a game changer. Empathetic leaders create environments of trust and safety, leading to higher engagement and productivity. In teams, it fuels better communication and collaboration, making everyone more effective. And in customer service, it's the key to building loyalty and providing exceptional experiences. It truly allows us to win in life by connecting deeper.
You've got it. The power of empathy isn't just about being nice. It's a strategic advantage that enriches our lives and elevates our careers. It's about understanding the human element in every interaction.
It's a skill that pays dividends across the board. So, we've covered the foundations of empathy, explored different types, honed our listening skills, and now we understand its profound impact. What's next on our journey?
Next episode, Leading with Compassion. We'll explore how to translate empathy into actionable leadership strategies.
Leading with compassion. I'm looking forward to that.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored empathy's transformative power on personal and professional levels.
It was fascinating to see how empathy unlocks individual potential, improving relationships and well being.
Absolutely. Today, we're applying empathy to leadership. We'll be discussing how to lead with compassion, a strategic and effective approach.
Leading with compassion. How does that fit into successful leadership in a results driven world?
Effective leaders understand that true leadership is about connection, and empathy is its foundation. You can't truly guide or inspire if you don't understand your team's needs and challenges.
So, it's about understanding the human element behind the work.
Precisely. Leading with compassion means creating an environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued. This fosters psychological safety, where team members feel safe to express ideas and admit mistakes without fear. They become more engaged, innovative, and loyal.
How does a leader actively cultivate that psychological safety in a team?
It starts with genuine curiosity. A compassionate leader seeks to understand their team members' perspectives by asking open-ended questions like, "How are you feeling about this project?" or "What challenges are you facing?" They listen attentively, grasping underlying emotions and concerns.
Active listening, which we discussed before, is crucial here.
Absolutely. Active listening demonstrates respect and shows your team their input matters. This involves paraphrasing and offering validating statements that acknowledge their feelings. Saying, "I understand why you might feel frustrated," can be very impactful.
That validation matters. It's easy for leaders to jump to solutions, but sometimes people just need to feel heard.
Exactly. This leads to ethical decision-making. Compassionate leaders consider the impact of their decisions on people, not just the business. They make decisions fairly and transparently, explaining the why, especially when decisions affect individuals. This builds trust.
So, instead of just stating a decision, a compassionate leader might explain its reasoning and offer support.
That's a perfect example. It acknowledges potential difficulty and offers support, which builds trust and fosters loyalty. People are more likely to go the extra mile for a leader who genuinely cares about their well-being.
It creates a sense of shared purpose and commitment.
It does. And this shapes the entire work environment. Compassionate leaders create a positive and supportive culture by recognizing achievements, offering growth opportunities, and providing resources. It's like tending a garden. You provide the right conditions for people to thrive.
That garden analogy is so helpful. It's about nurturing growth.
Precisely. And leaders need to be accessible, showing genuine interest in their team's well-being. This builds approachability.
So, to recap, leading with compassion means cultivating a supportive environment through genuine curiosity and active listening, making ethical decisions with a human centered approach, and fostering trust that builds loyalty. It creates a workplace where people feel valued, safe, and motivated.
You've summarized it perfectly, Lisa. It's a powerful way to lead, resulting in higher productivity, lower turnover, and a more innovative organization. It's a proactive approach that builds stronger teams.
It truly sounds like the future of effective leadership, shifting from command and control to connect and collaborate.
Exactly. We've seen how empathy transforms individuals, and now we're applying it to leadership. It's about leading with both heart and mind.
It's a compelling vision for leadership.
We've covered how empathy is foundational for connection, how it exists on a spectrum, the power of active listening, its transformative effects on individuals, and how to lead with compassion. Now, we'll explore how to nurture these crucial skills in the next generation.
Raising empathetic children, nurturing future connectors. That sounds like a vital conversation.
It is. We'll discuss practical strategies for parents and caregivers to help children develop their empathy, understand others' feelings, and build strong, compassionate relationships.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Thanks for listening. back. Last time we covered leading with compassion. Now, let's talk about raising empathetic children.
That's right, Alex. It feels like empathy is more important now than ever. And when we think about raising kids, we want them to be kind, understanding, and able to connect with others. So, how do we actively help them develop these crucial skills from a young age?
It really starts with us, the adults. Children learn by watching and imitating. So, the first and most fundamental step is to model empathetic behavior. Think about how you interact with your child, with your partner, with strangers, even with characters on TV. Do you show concern when someone is upset? Do you actively try to understand different viewpoints?
So, it's not just about telling them to be empathetic, but showing them what it looks like in real time.
Exactly. If your child sees you getting frustrated and immediately shutting down, they'll learn that's how to react. But if they see you pause, acknowledge your own feelings, and then try to understand why someone else might be acting a certain way, that's a powerful lesson. This modeling extends to how we talk about emotions, too. We need to help them build their emotional vocabulary.
Emotional literacy. Teaching kids to name their feelings seems like a critical part of that.
You got it, Lisa. Teaching emotional literacy is about equipping children with the words to understand and express what they're feeling. Instead of just saying, you're upset, encourage them to elaborate. Are you feeling frustrated because your toy broke? Or are you feeling sad because your friend left? Giving them these labels, happy, sad, angry, scared, frustrated, excited, helps them process their own internal world and also recognize those feelings in others.
This makes so much sense. If a child can't even name their own anger, how can they possibly understand it in someone else?
Precisely. And as they start to identify their own emotions, we can then guide them towards understanding others. This brings us to another crucial skill, encouraging perspective taking. This is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to see the world from their point of view.
This sounds like the core of empathy, doesn't it?
It truly is. And we can foster perspective taking in kids from a very young age. When a conflict arises between siblings, for example, instead of immediately taking sides, try facilitating a conversation. Ask questions like, how do you think your brother felt when you took his toy? Or what made you feel that way when she said that?
So, we're not just solving the immediate problem, but using it as a teaching moment for empathy.
Exactly. We're helping them to consider the impact of their actions on others. We can also use stories and play for this. When reading books, pause and ask, how do you think the character feels right now? When they're playing with dolls or action figures, encourage them to act out different scenarios and discuss the character's feelings and motivations.
I can see how this builds over time, starting with naming their own feelings, then understanding others' feelings, and then trying to actively imagine what it's like to be someone else.
It's a developmental journey. And remember how we discussed the importance of validation? For children, this is just as critical. When they express a feeling, validate it. Even if the reason for the feeling seems trivial to us as adults, to them, it's real. Saying things like, I can see you're really disappointed that we can't go to the park today, lets them know their feelings are heard and accepted.
That's a great reminder. Often, we want to jump to fixing the problem or cheering them up, but sometimes just acknowledging their emotion is the first step.
Absolutely. And this leads to creating an environment where open communication about feelings is encouraged, not discouraged. We want our children to feel safe expressing their emotions, the good and the difficult ones. This also applies to how we handle their mistakes. Mistakes are inevitable learning opportunities, and approaching them with understanding and a focus on what can be learned, rather than harsh criticism, fosters a more empathetic outlook.
So, to recap, we're talking about modeling empathetic behavior ourselves, teaching children to identify and name their own emotions, actively encouraging them to consider others' perspectives, and validating their feelings.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. And it's also about actively looking for opportunities to teach empathy. This could be through everyday interactions, through media, or even through volunteering or community activities. When children see empathy put into practice in their community, it reinforces its value and importance.
It sounds like a consistent, intentional effort is key. It's not a one-off lesson, but a continuous thread woven through their upbringing.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that children will have ups and downs. There will be times when they struggle with empathy, just as we all do. The goal isn't perfection, but progress. By consistently applying these principles, we're equipping them with the foundational skills to build strong, meaningful connections throughout their lives.
It truly is about nurturing future connectors. These are skills that will benefit them in all their relationships, personal and professional.
And thinking about the balance of empathy, which we'll explore further in our next episode, it's crucial to remember that while we're teaching our children to be deeply caring, we also need to ensure they develop resilience and avoid burnout.
That's a perfect segue. So, for our listeners who are parents, educators, or anyone who interacts with children, focus on modeling, naming feelings, encouraging perspective taking, and validating emotions.
That's the heart of it. Next episode, the empathy paradox.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored nurturing empathetic children. Now, in episode 7, we're addressing a crucial and often overlooked aspect, the empathy paradox, preventing burnout while actively caring for others.
That's such an important topic, Alex. It's easy to get swept up in being empathetic, especially after discussing how to build it in kids. But as we give, we can also deplete ourselves.
Exactly, Lisa. Think of empathy like an emotional battery. When we're constantly tuning into others' feelings, offering comfort, and understanding their struggles, we're drawing power from that battery. If we don't recharge, that battery runs low, and that's where burnout sets in.
So, the paradox is that the very act of being deeply empathetic can lead to a state where we're less able to be empathetic because we're exhausted?
Precisely. Burnout isn't just feeling tired. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. In the context of empathy, it can manifest as cynicism, detachment, and even a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. You start to feel like you're just going through the motions, and the genuine connection fades.
That sounds really disheartening. How can we avoid reaching that point? What are the first steps to preventing empathy burnout?
The first and perhaps most critical step is boundary setting. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about protecting your emotional and energetic resources so you can continue to connect authentically.
What does setting a boundary look like in practice, especially when someone is clearly in distress? It feels counterintuitive to say no or I can't when someone needs support.
It can feel that way, but it's about saying yes to your own well-being, which ultimately allows you to be a better support system. A boundary can be as simple as limiting the time you spend listening to someone's troubles. Or it could be about deciding what kinds of issues you are equipped to help with and what might require professional support. It's also about recognizing when you've absorbed too much. Can you share an example? Lisa?
Okay, imagine a friend is going through a really tough time and they call you every single night for an hour to vent. Initially, you want to be there, but after a few weeks, you're drained. A boundary might be saying, I really want to support you, and I'm here to listen. Let's schedule a call for 2 evenings a week for 30 minutes each. That way, I can give you my full attention without feeling overwhelmed each night.
That's an excellent, practical example. You're not abandoning your friend. You're structuring your support in a way that is sustainable for you. Another key strategy is self-compassion. Just as we extend empathy and understanding to others, we need to offer it to ourselves.
Self-compassion. That feels a bit like indulgence to some people, but I get that it's about kindness to ourselves.
Exactly. When you're feeling overwhelmed or like you've failed to help someone enough, instead of self-criticism, try acknowledging your effort and your feelings. Say something to yourself like, "This is really hard right now," or "It's okay that I feel drained. I've been giving a lot." It's about treating yourself with the same understanding you'd offer a close friend.
So, when I'm feeling guilty for needing a break, self compassion is about recognizing that feeling of guilt, acknowledging it's painful, and reminding myself that it's natural to feel that way and that I deserve kindness too.
You've got it. And a powerful way to practice self-compassion and counter burnout is through emotional replenishment. This means actively engaging in activities that recharge your emotional batteries. What does that look like for you, Lisa?
For me, it's spending time in nature, whether it's a walk in the park or just sitting by a lake. It's a quiet time where I can just be without the constant input of other people's emotions. I also find that creative activities, like painting or writing down my thoughts, help me process what I'm feeling and release some of that built up emotional energy.
Those are fantastic examples. For some, it might be listening to music, engaging in a hobby, talking with a trusted friend who isn't in crisis, or even just dedicated quiet time for mindfulness or meditation. The key is that these activities are restorative for you. They put energy back into your emotional reserve. Think of it like this: you can't pour from an empty cup. Replenishment is about refilling that cup.
That analogy always works. So, boundaries, self compassion, and emotional replenishment. Those seem like the core pillars. We've discussed building empathy in children. Are there any other practical strategies for managing the empathy paradox?
Yes, we need to be mindful of emotional contagion. This is when we unconsciously absorb the emotions of others. While some level of emotional mirroring is part of empathy, unchecked emotional contagion can leave us feeling like we're carrying everyone else's burdens.
Right.
It's like you've picked up someone else's sadness or anxiety, and now it feels like your own.
Exactly. A way to manage this is through emotional detachment, which is different from emotional disconnection. Detachment means observing emotions without fully internalizing them. It's like being a scientist observing a phenomenon rather than being caught in the storm. You can acknowledge the emotion. "I see you are feeling angry," without letting that anger become yours.
So, emotional contagion is picking up others' feelings, and emotional detachment is observing them without taking them on. That distinction is really helpful.
It is, and it ties into the idea of knowing your own emotional baseline. When you're aware of your typical emotional state, it becomes easier to recognize when you've absorbed something that isn't yours. Taking short breaks throughout the day to check in with yourself can also help prevent emotional overload.
Checking in with ourselves. That sounds simple, but easily forgotten when we're focused on others. So, to recap for our listeners, the empathy paradox is about sustaining our capacity to care without depleting ourselves. The antidotes are setting clear boundaries, practicing self compassion by treating ourselves with kindness, and actively engaging in emotional replenishment through restorative activities. We also need to be mindful of emotional contagion and practice emotional detachment.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's a continuous practice, not a one-time fix. By implementing these strategies, we can ensure our empathy remains a source of connection and strength, rather than a pathway to exhaustion. Remember, caring for others begins with caring for yourself.
And that ensures we can continue to be the empathetic connectors we aim to be.
Next episode, we'll explore how empathy translates into the digital world. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Empathy Advantage. Today, we're diving into the digital world and exploring digital empathy, navigating connections in the online world.
That sounds so relevant, Alex. So much of our lives now happen online. It feels like a whole new landscape for how we connect and sometimes how we disconnect, too.
Exactly, Lisa. And that digital landscape presents its own unique set of challenges when it comes to empathy. We lose so many of the cues we rely on in face-to-face interactions. Think about it. No direct eye contact, no immediate body language, no tone of voice to immediately gauge someone's feelings.
Right.
You can read an email or a text and completely misinterpret the sentiment behind it. Someone could be trying to be helpful, and it comes across as critical, or they might be joking, and it sounds sarcastic. It feels like a minefield sometimes.
It can be. But the good news is that empathy isn't just about reacting to what we see and hear in person. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be adapted and applied to new environments. So, how do we cultivate that empathy when we're behind screen? The first step, I think, is mindful communication.
Mindful communication online. What does that look like, specifically?
It starts with pausing before you type. Before you hit send or post, take a moment to consider your words. Ask yourself, what is my intention here? How might this be received by someone who doesn't have the full context that I do?
So, it's about putting ourselves in the reader's shoes, even without all the usual social cues. We have to be more deliberate about clarity.
Precisely. And that includes being mindful of emojis or punctuation. While they can help convey tone, overuse or misuse can also lead to misunderstandings. Think about how a series of exclamation points can come across as overly excited or even aggressive, depending on the recipient and the message.
That's a great point. And what about when we're on the receiving end? How do we practice empathy when we encounter something online that might be upsetting or even aggressive?
That's where understanding digital body language comes in. Since we can't see facial expressions or hear tone, we have to learn to read the digital signals more carefully. This means looking at the overall pattern of communication, the choice of words, capitalization, and yes, even the use of punctuation and emojis. Are they constructive or dismissive? Are they seeking understanding or making demands?
So, we're looking for the underlying emotional intent, even if it's not explicitly stated. It's like detective work for feelings.
A bit like that. And when we're unsure, the most empathetic approach is often to seek clarification. Instead of assuming negative intent, a simple phrase like, I want to make sure I understand, are you saying X? Can prevent a lot of unnecessary conflict.
That's a wonderfully practical tip. It shifts the burden of understanding from purely assuming to actively seeking. And it takes courage to ask for clarification, especially if the situation feels tense.
It does. But remember, we touched on preventing burnout in episode 7 to sustain our empathy. Applying these strategies online also helps us conserve our emotional energy. By seeking understanding and communicating clearly, we reduce the likelihood of draining interactions. This is about building genuine connections through screens. It requires patience and a willingness to give others the benefit of the doubt, while also being clear about our own needs and boundaries.
So, mindful communication and understanding digital body language are key. What else can we do to foster empathy in our online interactions?
Well, conscious engagement is crucial. This means being aware of our impact on others in digital spaces. When we're in online communities, forums, or social media, we're not just passively consuming. We are active participants. Think about the comments we leave, the posts we share, the way we react to others' content. Are we contributing positively? Are we fostering a sense of belonging? Or are we contributing to negativity or division?
It's about taking responsibility for the digital atmosphere we help create. Like tending a garden, you have to be intentional about what you plant and how you nurture it.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. And cultivating that positive digital atmosphere can involve actively practicing digital kindness. This could be as simple as offering a supportive comment, sharing someone's achievement, or even just acknowledging a struggling friend with a kind message. These small acts can have a significant impact in a digital world that can sometimes feel impersonal and isolating.
It's easy to forget that there's a real person on the other side of the screen, with their own feelings and experiences. Online interactions can sometimes feel less consequential, but the emotional impact is just as real.
Absolutely. Empathy online also means recognizing and respecting different communication styles, cultural nuances, and even differing levels of digital literacy. What might seem obvious to one person could be completely foreign to another. Approaching these differences with curiosity rather than judgment is a hallmark of digital empathy.
So, it's not just about understanding individuals, but also understanding the diverse digital landscape itself and the people navigating it.
Exactly. And this brings us to being mindful of privacy and consent in our digital interactions. Sharing information, tagging people, or even forwarding messages without consideration can be a breach of trust and deeply unempathetic. Always consider who might see something and whether you have permission.
That makes perfect sense. In the physical world, we understand the boundaries around personal space and private conversations. We need to translate that same respect into our digital interactions.
We do. And finally, when engaging in discussions, especially on sensitive topics, it's vital to practice empathy by listening to understand, not just to respond. In online forums or comment sections, it's easy to fall into patterns of debate where the goal is to win rather than to connect or learn. Truly empathetic online engagement means being willing to set aside our own agenda to genuinely try and grasp another person's perspective, even if we don't agree with it.
So, to recap, digital empathy involves mindful communication, understanding digital cues, conscious engagement, digital kindness, respecting privacy, and truly listening to understand online. It's a lot to consider, but it's essential for healthy relationships in our modern world.
It is Lisa, and as we continue this journey through the empathy advantage, in our next episode, we'll be tackling conflict head on. We'll explore the art of empathetic conflict resolution.
That sounds like a critical skill to build upon the empathy we've been discussing.
Indeed. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Empathy Advantage. Last time, we explored digital empathy. Now, let's tackle empathetic conflict resolution.
Conflict is inevitable, isn't it? Disagreements pop up, and often our first instinct is to get defensive or shut down. But what if we could approach conflict with empathy and see it as an opportunity to deepen our understanding and strengthen our connection?
Exactly. The key here is shifting our perspective. Instead of seeing conflict as a battle to be won, we can view it as a shared problem to be solved, with empathy as our most powerful tool. This starts with truly understanding that there are always at least two sides to any story.
So, the first step is really about stepping into the other person's shoes, even when we're feeling angry or hurt. That sounds challenging. How do we do that when emotions are running high?
It's challenging, but achievable. We need to remember what we learned about active listening. When conflict arises, the urge might be to interrupt or defend ourselves. Empathetic conflict resolution requires us to resist that urge and focus on listening to understand, not just responding.
So, if someone is telling us they're upset about something we did, instead of immediately saying, "That's not what happened," we should try to really hear what they're saying and how they're feeling.
Precisely. We need to create a safe space for them to express themselves without fear of judgment. This involves acknowledging their feelings, even if we don't agree with their interpretation. You can say things like, "I hear that you're feeling frustrated," or "It sounds like this situation has really upset you." This validates their emotional experience.
Okay, validating feelings. That's a really important distinction. It's like saying, "I see your pain," without necessarily saying, "I caused your pain."
You've hit the nail on the head. To do this effectively, we need to practice what's often called non-defensive communication. This means being mindful of our own body language, our tone of voice, and our word choices. Are we crossing our arms? Are we speaking in a sharp, accusatory tone? These nonverbal cues can quickly escalate a situation.
Right? Because our body can betray what we're trying to say. So, we're actively listening, validating feelings, and communicating non-defensively. What happens if the other person is still very angry or not willing to listen?
That's where de-escalation comes in. Sometimes, a conflict has reached a fever pitch. In these moments, the goal isn't immediate resolution, but to lower the temperature. This might involve suggesting a brief pause. You could say, I can see we're both very upset right now. Perhaps we could take a 15-minute break and come back to this conversation when we've both had a chance to cool down.
A pause. That's a good idea. It gives both people space to breathe and re-regulate their emotions. It's a way of saying, I care about resolving this, but I also care about not making it worse right now.
Exactly. And when you do return to the conversation, you can come back with a more empathetic approach. Ask open-ended questions to genuinely understand their perspective. Instead of asking, why did you do that? Which can sound accusatory, you might ask, can you help me understand what led you to that decision? Or what was going through your mind when that happened?
That difference in wording is huge. It shifts from interrogation to genuine curiosity. And that curiosity, fueled by empathy, can uncover the underlying needs or fears that are driving the conflict. Because often, what we communicate on the surface isn't the real issue.
That's a crucial point. Conflict often arises from unmet needs. Needs for respect, for security, for recognition, or for connection. When we can identify those underlying needs, both our own and the other person's, we can begin to find solutions that truly address the root cause. Think of it like this. If someone is complaining about a leaky faucet and you just keep wiping up the water without fixing the pipe, the problem will never truly be solved.
So we need to get to the pipe, so to speak. And this empathy allows us to see that the other person's complaint about the leaky faucet might be coming from a deeper need for a stable, secure home environment.
Precisely. So we've talked about listening, validating, de-escalating, and understanding underlying needs. The next step is about finding that resolution. This is where collaboration comes in. Once both parties feel heard and understood, you can work together to brainstorm solutions. This is about synergy, finding a solution that's better than what either person could have come up with alone.
And it's important that the resolution honors everyone's feelings and needs as much as possible. It's not about one person winning and the other losing.
Absolutely not. Empathetic conflict resolution aims for win-win or, at the very least, a mutually agreeable outcome. This might mean compromise, or it might mean finding a creative solution that addresses the core needs of everyone involved. It's a process of negotiation, but one guided by understanding and respect.
It sounds like embracing empathy in conflict can actually transform difficult situations into opportunities for growth and stronger relationships. It takes practice, though. It's not something you just switch on.
It definitely takes practice, but the rewards are immense. When we approach conflict with empathy, we're not just resolving a disagreement. We're building trust, fostering deeper connections, and creating a more positive environment. We're reinforcing the very foundations of connection we've been discussing throughout this series.
So, to recap, the art of empathetic conflict resolution involves, first, actively listening to understand the other person's perspective and feelings without immediate judgment or defensiveness. Second, validating their emotions, even if you don't agree with their viewpoint. Third, practicing non-defensive communication in your own words and body language. Fourth, knowing when and how to de-escalate tense situations, perhaps by taking a break. Fifth, using curiosity and open-ended questions to uncover underlying needs. And finally, collaboratively finding a resolution that honors everyone involved. Essentially, we're turning potential clashes into bridges of understanding.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. It's about remembering that beneath every conflict is a human being with their own experiences and feelings. By approaching with empathy, we can navigate these challenging moments not just more effectively, but with more compassion and connection.
It really reframes conflict from something to be feared into something that can actually lead to greater understanding.
Next episode, Embracing Cultural Empathy, Bridging Divides with Understanding. back. Last time we explored empathetic conflict resolution. Now, let's embrace cultural empathy.
That's right, Alex. In our interconnected world, understanding cultural differences is essential for genuine connection.
Cultural empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of someone from a different culture. It means stepping outside our own shoes and seeing the world through another's eyes. We often assume others think like us, but cultural empathy challenges that.
This is vital personally and professionally. Working on global teams or traveling means misunderstandings can easily happen without it. This feels like an extension of understanding different perspectives we discussed earlier.
Exactly, Lisa. Remember cognitive empathy, the intellectual understanding of another's perspective? Cultural empathy relies heavily on that. We need to grasp that norms around directness, personal space, or even time perception vary wildly. What's a straightforward statement in one culture might be seen as rude in another.
So, it's understanding the context shaping their actions and feelings, sort of like learning a new cultural language.
Precisely. It takes patience and curiosity. A key part is recognizing our own cultural biases, like wearing tinted glasses that color our view of the world. Cultural empathy means acknowledging those biases and adjusting our lens.
Those cultural glasses are a great image. How do we start to notice them?
It begins with curiosity and openness. When interacting with someone from a different background, ask yourself, why might they be acting this way? What values might be influencing them? Shift your mindset from judgment to inquiry. Try asking, tell me more about that.
So, actively learning about different cultures, their traditions, and etiquette is a big part of developing this skill.
Absolutely. It's not about memorizing facts about every single culture, but about developing sensitivity and a toolkit for navigating cross-cultural interactions. For example, in many Asian cultures, the concept of saving face is important. This might mean avoiding public criticism, which can feel indirect to people from cultures that value directness.
And this is where our conflict resolution skills become even more powerful. Understanding cultural norms around harmony or directness can change how we approach a disagreement, perhaps guiding us toward a more conciliatory approach.
You've got it. It's about adapting our communication to the cultural currents that shape people. Nonverbal communication is also critical. Think about the significance of eye contact. In Western cultures, it's often seen as a sign of honesty and engagement. But in many other cultures, prolonged eye contact can be interpreted as disrespectful or aggressive.
Wow, something as simple as eye contact can differ so much. We need to be observant and adapt our behavior accordingly.
Exactly. Be a mindful observer. Humor, personal space, and concepts of time are also culturally bound. What is considered punctual in one place might be seen as early or late elsewhere. This relates to the difference between polychronic and monochronic time. Monochronic cultures tend to focus on one task at a time and place a high value on schedules, while polychronic cultures are more comfortable juggling multiple tasks simultaneously and tend to prioritize relationships over strict adherence to schedules.
Polychronic versus monochronic time, that really helps explain a lot of potential misunderstandings. So, to recap what we've discussed so far, cultural empathy means understanding and respecting different cultural backgrounds. It involves cognitive understanding, awareness of our biases, a spirit of curiosity, and adapting our communication styles. We've also touched on the importance of nonverbal cues and different cultural perceptions of time.
Excellent summary, Lisa. A practical way to develop this skill further is to actively listen to and seek out diverse perspectives. Engage with art, films, and literature from different cultures. Most importantly, have genuine conversations with people from varied backgrounds. Ask open-ended questions and truly listen without imposing your own interpretations or judgments.
It sounds like a continuous learning process, not something you achieve overnight.
Absolutely. It's a journey of ongoing discovery. And remember, there's great individual variation within any culture, so it's crucial to avoid stereotyping. The goal is to develop a flexible and nuanced approach, always recognizing the unique human being beneath any cultural label.
What's your key takeaway for listeners who want to become more culturally empathetic?
Start small and be intentional. Perhaps begin with someone you interact with regularly and identify as being from a different cultural background. Practice asking questions with genuine curiosity about their experiences and perspectives. Be patient with yourself and with others as you navigate these interactions. If you make a mistake, a sincere apology and a commitment to learn from it go a long way. The intention to understand and connect is incredibly powerful.
That's such great advice. It's about consciously deciding to bridge divides with understanding, much like in conflict resolution, but with a broader appreciation for the diversity of human experience.
Precisely. Embracing cultural empathy not only enriches our individual lives and strengthens our relationships, but also contributes to a more understanding and harmonious world. It truly is an advantage.
It really is. So, to summarize our discussion today, cultural empathy is understanding perspectives shaped by culture. It involves recognizing our biases, being curious, and adapting our communication. It is a continuous journey of learning.
And that brings us to the end of another episode. Next time, we'll focus on integrating everything we've learned into our daily lives by building lasting empathic habits. We're diving deep into making empathy a daily practice.
Absolutely, Alex. We've explored so many facets of empathy, from its different types and how to practice active listening to its impact on leadership, parenting, and even navigating the digital world. We've touched on conflict resolution and understanding different cultures. Now, the big question is, how do we make it stick? How do we ensure these lessons don't just fade away after the series ends?
Exactly, Lisa. The goal of this episode is to equip you with actionable strategies for integrating empathy into your routine and reinforcing it, so it becomes a natural, consistent part of who you are. We're talking about building lasting empathic habits. Remember how we talked about cognitive empathy early on, the ability to understand another's perspective? Well, to build habits, we need to be mindful of that perspective consistently.
And that consistency is key, isn't it? It's like any skill, whether it's learning an instrument or a sport. You can watch all the tutorials, but until you actually practice, until you do it repeatedly, it remains just knowledge, not a developed ability. So, what are the practical steps for this practice?
Great question. One of the most effective ways to build any habit is through what behavioral scientists call habit stacking. This involves linking a new desired habit to an already established daily routine. For instance, if you already brush your teeth every morning, you could stack an empathy-related habit right after it.
Oh, I like that. So, instead of just thinking, I need to be more empathetic, it becomes after I brush my teeth, I will take 1 minute to consider how my partner or colleague is feeling today. It gives the new habit a trigger.
Precisely. And the key is to start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. For our habit stacking example, that 1 minute of consideration is a manageable start. You could also decide that during your morning commute, instead of scrolling through your phone, you'll actively look for opportunities to offer a smile or a friendly nod to strangers you pass.
That makes it feel much less overwhelming. So, habit stacking to create a trigger and starting with small, manageable actions. What else can we do to reinforce these empathic behaviors?
Another powerful technique is conscious reflection. Dedicate a few minutes at the end of each day, perhaps during that quiet time before bed, to briefly review your interactions. Ask yourself, how did I show up today? Were there moments I could have been more understanding? Where did I succeed in connecting with someone's feelings?
This sounds like a form of self-awareness, which we know is a cornerstone of empathy. It's not about beating yourself up if you missed an opportunity, but about learning from it for the next day. It's a feedback loop for empathy.
Exactly. And this reflection can be made even more concrete. You might jot down one or two specific instances where you practiced empathy successfully, or one instance where you wished you had. This written record serves as a tangible reminder of your progress and areas for growth. Think of it as your personal empathy journal.
A tangible record. That's a great way to anchor it. We've talked about cultural empathy before, and often being empathetic means stepping outside our own comfortable frame of reference. How does reflection help with that, especially when we encounter people with vastly different experiences or viewpoints?
Reflection helps by prompting us to consciously explore those differences. After interaction where you felt challenged by someone's perspective, your reflection could be, what is it about their background or experience that might lead them to see things this way? This isn't about agreeing, but about seeking understanding, which is the essence of cognitive empathy.
So, reflection isn't just about past actions, but also about priming our minds to be more open in future interactions. It's like preparing the soil for empathy to grow in.
You've got it. Now, let's talk about another crucial aspect, seeking out opportunities to practice. We all have our established routines and social circles. To build empathic habits, we sometimes need to deliberately step outside those familiar zones.
That could mean joining a new community group, volunteering for a cause that exposes you to different life experiences, or even initiating conversations with people you wouldn't normally engage with. It's about actively seeking out the practice fields for empathy.
Precisely. And when you are in these new situations, remember the principles we've discussed. Practice active listening. Really focus on understanding the other person's words and feelings without planning your response. Ask open-ended questions. And most importantly, be patient with yourself and others. Building deep connections takes time.
Patience is so important, especially when we're trying to integrate something as profound as empathy into our lives. It's easy to get discouraged if we don't see immediate results.
Absolutely. And that brings us to overcoming common obstacles. One of the biggest is simply forgetting. Our lives are busy, and it's easy for the intention to be there, but the execution to slip. This is where external reminders can be incredibly helpful.
External reminders? Like what?
You could set a recurring reminder on your phone, a simple nudge at a chosen time each day, like noon, asking, how can I show empathy right now? Or you might place a small, symbolic object, like a smooth stone or a particular charm, in a visible spot, on your desk, by your front door, to serve as a visual cue.
That's clever. A physical anchor for a mental practice. What about when empathy starts to feel draining, that empathy paradox we touched on in episode 7? How do we maintain our empathic habits without burning out?
This is critical for sustainability. Building empathic habits isn't just about giving, it's also about understanding your own limits and practicing self-compassion. This means recognizing when you need to step back, recharge, and replenish your own emotional and mental energy.
So, a part of building an empathic habit is also developing a habit of self-care, ensuring you have the capacity to be empathetic. It's like making sure your cup is full before you offer to pour for others.
Exactly. And this self-compassion extends to forgiving yourself for missteps. If you're tired and you react impatiently, acknowledge it, learn from it, and then let it go. Holding on to guilt or self-criticism will only hinder your progress. Remember, the goal is consistent effort, not perfect execution.
So, to recap what we've covered for building lasting empathic habits, habit stacking to create triggers, starting small with manageable actions, using conscious reflection for learning and self-awareness, seeking out diverse opportunities to practice, employing external reminders, and crucially, integrating self-compassion and self-care to prevent burnout. It's a holistic approach.
It truly is. It's about making empathy an intentional, ongoing practice, not a fleeting intention. By integrating these strategies, you're not just learning about empathy, you're becoming a more empathetic person day by day. And as we approach the end of our series, remember that this journey doesn't stop here. It's a lifelong adventure in connection.
And in our final episode, we'll be looking back at the entire series, reinforcing the core messages and offering a clear path forward for you to continue your empathy advantage journey.
Don't miss our finale. Next episode, The Empathy Advantage, a recap and your path forward. Welcome back to The Empathy Advantage. This is it, episode 12, our final episode together. We've journeyed through so much, from the very foundations of empathy to practical ways we can all build deeper connections in our lives.
It's hard to believe it's the end of the series, but what a journey it's been. Over the past 11 episodes, we've really explored what it means to have that empathy advantage and how to cultivate it.
Exactly, Lisa. This final episode is all about bringing it all together. We're going to recap the core ideas, reinforce why empathy is such a powerful tool, and finally, talk about your personal path forward to truly embrace this advantage.
So, to start us off, Alex, can you remind our listeners what we laid down as the foundational understanding of empathy in those early episodes? What's the core concept we've been building on?
Absolutely. In our first episode, we established that empathy isn't just feeling sorry for someone. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's about stepping into someone else's shoes, not necessarily to agree with them, but to truly grasp their perspective. We talked about how it's the bedrock of all meaningful human connection, right from the start.
And then we moved on to understanding that empathy isn't just one single thing, did we? We broke it down into different facets.
We did. Episodes 2 and 3 were crucial for that. We explored the spectrum of empathy: cognitive, which is understanding someone's thoughts and perspectives; emotional, which is feeling what they're feeling; and compassionate, which is being moved to action by their feelings. These aren't separate skills, they work together. And underpinning all of this was active listening, which we dedicated an entire episode to.
Ah, yes, active listening. That was such a powerful takeaway. The idea of truly focusing on the speaker, not just hearing their words, but understanding their intent and emotions, without planning your response. It's about being fully present.
Precisely. It's about asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you've heard, and giving your undivided attention. It's the most direct way to bridge the gap between yourself and another person, to truly foster understanding.
And we saw how this translates into tangible benefits, didn't we? Episode 4 was all about the transformative power of empathy, both personally and professionally.
That's right. We discussed how empathy can improve our relationships, reduce conflict, and even boost our own well-being by fostering a sense of belonging and connection. Professionally, it leads to better teamwork, stronger leadership, and more innovative solutions. Think about customer service, negotiation, or just collaborating on a project. Empathy makes all the difference.
And that professional aspect really came to the fore in episode 5 when we talked about leading with compassion.
Indeed, empathetic leaders create environments where people feel valued, understood, and motivated. They don't just manage tasks. They connect with their teams on a human level, which is incredibly powerful for morale and productivity. It's about seeing your team members as whole individuals.
Then we broadened our scope to talk about empathy in different contexts. Episode 6 was about raising empathetic children.
A vital topic. By teaching children empathy from a young age, we equip them with essential life skills. We can encourage them to consider others' feelings, to understand different viewpoints, and to resolve conflicts peacefully. It's about nurturing the next generation of compassionate individuals.
And speaking of compassion and connection, episode 7 addressed the empathy paradox. This was an important one, as it can feel overwhelming sometimes to constantly tap into others' emotions.
It is. The empathy paradox is about how, even as we deepen our empathy for others, we must also protect our own emotional well-being. It's about setting boundaries, practicing self-care, and ensuring that our compassion doesn't lead to burnout. True empathy requires a healthy self, which is why self-empathy is just as important.
That brings us to the modern landscape. Episode 8 dove into digital empathy, which is so relevant today.
Yes, navigating online interactions with empathy is crucial. We discussed how to be mindful of tone, avoid misinterpretations, and foster respectful communication even when we can't see facial expressions or hear vocal cues. It's about extending empathy beyond face-to-face encounters.
Then we tackled conflict, which is often where empathy is most needed, in episode 9, Empathetic conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution using empathy means approaching disagreements not as battles to be won, but as opportunities to understand underlying needs and concerns. It's about finding common ground and solutions that address everyone's feelings and needs, rather than just asserting one's own position.
Another powerful angle was cultural empathy in episode 10, bridging divides with understanding.
This is about recognizing and respecting that different cultures have different norms, values, and ways of communicating. It requires an open mind and a willingness to learn and adapt to truly see the world from another cultural perspective. It's about building bridges of understanding across diverse populations.
And finally, in episode 11, we focused on building lasting empathic habits, integrating all these lessons.
That's exactly right. We talked about making empathy a daily practice. This involves conscious effort, seeking opportunities to practice active listening, reflecting on our interactions, and making small, consistent choices to understand and connect with others. It's about moving from knowing empathy to being empathetic.
It truly feels like we've covered the entire landscape of empathy, from its core definition to its practical application in every aspect of life. Alex, as we wrap up this series, what's your single biggest takeaway or hope for our listeners as they move forward?
My greatest hope is that listeners recognize empathy not as a personality trait they either have or don't, but as a skill that can be learned, practiced, and honed. It's a superpower for connection, for problem solving, and for living a richer, more fulfilling life. The path forward is simply to keep practicing, keep listening, keep seeking to understand, and keep caring.
And that's the key, isn't it? It's a continuous journey. It's about making conscious choices every day to lead with understanding and compassion. Remember, every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen your empathy muscles.
Absolutely. So, step out there and embrace the empathy advantage in your own lives. Continue to connect deeper, and you will undoubtedly win in life in all its forms.
Thank you so much for being with us on this incredible journey. We've truly enjoyed exploring the empathy advantage with you.
Thanks for listening to the series.